Someone that's afraid to let go. You decide.
Now that the NBA season has come to an end and the draft and free agency will be taking place in the upcoming months, I want to talk about what some teams should be focusing on in order to give themselves the best chance to compete for a title next season. With that being said, the first team I'll be starting with is the Boston Celtics. The Celtics had a great regular season and playoff run, making it to the Eastern Conference Finals where they lost to the Heat in 6 games. They also had a long series against the previous defending champions, Toronto Raptors, and while most would agree that this was a successful season and playoff run, I think it's obvious that they still have some room to improve. Jayson Tatum proved himself to be a top 15 to 20 player in the NBA and showed that he can score on the best defenders in the league. Jaylen Brown also showed big improvements this season and upped his two-way game to another level come playoff time. Marcus Smart was his usual self, playing like one of the best defensive guards in the league while also being extremely streaky from 3. Kemba Walker was pretty good throughout most of the regular season, but definitely struggled a bit in the playoffs. Gordon Hayward brought his all-around game, but since he was injured for the majority of the playoffs, it's a little harder to judge how much value he brings to the team. A quick look at the role players such as Theis, both Williams, Ojeyele, and Wanamaker all played pretty solid and played at the level or even better than many expected. So I don't really think the role players were the only issue as to why the Celtics fell short this season. I think it mainly lies in Tatum's lack of an ability to close out games consistently, Kemba's shortcomings in the playoffs, and the team missing a true rim protector and a spot-up shooter. Therefore, the two things the Celtics should be focusing on the most is acquiring a rim protector and spot-up shooter through either the draft, a free agency signing, or a trade. So now let's look at who might be available at their position in the draft or guys earlier that they could trade up for. As of right now, in the first round, the Celtics have the 14th pick, 26th, and 30th. I think there's enough lottery level players for them to draft someone at the 14th pick, but since they were so close to making the finals and their two young stars, Tatum and Jaylen, have really improved since being drafted, I think it would make sense for them to package a few picks or players together to move up for a better player or trade for an already established one. In my mock draft that I made a little over a month ago, I have the Celtics taking Precious Achiuwa, who was a 6'9" forward with a high motor from Memphis. I still think this would be a solid pick, but the Celtics should probably shift their focus to securing one of the top bigs in this class instead of settling on a late lottery pick. It might be tough to pull off, but if Boston could bundle their 3 first-round picks together and maybe throw in a guy like Carson Edwards, who is only 22 and doesn't really contribute to the win-now mentality the Celtics have, then they could possibly move up closer to the top 10 or top 5 range of this draft. Especially since this draft isn't really expected to be as deep as past ones, I think if the Celtics want to get a guy that contributes right away, then Danny Ainge really needs to work his magic. If Boston is looking for a 3-and-D player that can be a really great spot-up shooter, I think they should go after Aaron Nesmith. He is a 6'6" shooting guard or small forward who shot over 50% from 3 on 8 attempts last season at Vanderbilt. If the Celtics want to go the other route and grab a defensive big, I think the best one in this draft would have to be Onyeka Okongwu, who's a 6'9" forward that has all the necessary skills to be an elite rim protector in the NBA. However, if they choose to stay at pick 14, it's still possible that these guys could fall to them, but very unlikely. With the last pick in the lottery, the Celtics should look for guys like Precious Achiuwa or Saddiq Bey, who was another 3-and-D guy. Now we can take a look at some moves the Celtics can make outside of the draft, such as signing free agents or making trades to fill some vacancies. I think the ideal offseason for the Celtics would be picking up a spot-up shooter in the draft and then signing or trading a defensive big man in free agency. I only say this because I think it would be easier for a rookie to have the role as a spot-up shooter rather than to be the anchor on defense, which is usually better fitted for a veteran. So with that being said, I think a great pickup would be a guy like Serge Ibaka. Although he is 31 and has begun to show his age, he still played 27 minutes a game and an important role for the Raptors. I think Ibaka would be able to help out Theis on tough assignments while also being able to stretch the floor on the offensive end. While the Celtics do not have too much cap space, they do have a $9 million mid-level exception which can be used on any free agency signing. On top of this, I think it would be ideal for them to trade Gordon Hayward in return for a cheaper player that provides different value. Hayward has been good for the Celtics, but after the original injury in the first game he played for Boston, he has never been able to reach his Utah Jazz form. He has a player option this offseason, but I think it goes without saying that he accepts it. He'll be making about $31 million next season, which is a lot, but it is the final year of his contract, meaning that a team would be more willing to take that on. Also, Hayward is a solid all-around forward that doesn't have any real weaknesses, so he could bring some good value to a team that lacks ball handlers. Some players that come to mind that might be on the move soon and fit the Celtics' needs include Miles Turner and Buddy Hield. The Pacers might lose Victor Oladipo in free agency in 2021, so it would make sense for them to get a guy that could possibly convince him to stay or just acquire more picks for the future. Also, for a while, it has been an issue that Turner and Sabonis can't really play together on the floor, so it would make sense to give up the non-All-Star in Turner. The Kings and Buddy Hield haven't really been on the same page for a while because the rest of the league knows he's an elite shooter, but for some reason finds himself coming off the bench more than he should. Adding a guy like Hayward would help Fox run the offense as well as bring a veteran mind to help a young team develop. Now obviously, since Hayward only has 1 year left on his contract and both of these teams would probably need something else to ensure they have future assets, I would assume the Celtics would have to throw in some of, if not all of their first round picks to pull off a trade like this, especially because other teams will be going after these two guys. There's definitely some other players the Celtics could go after in the draft and free agency, but in my mind these would be the best fit to help them reach the finals. If you made it this far into the video, I appreciate you. As always, thank you for watching. Leave a comment down below on what you think the Celtics should do. And if you enjoyed, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe with notifications on so you never miss another upload.